Throughout the years on the show, Paul has talked to some amazing guests, each of them imparting great lessons or advice along the way. Some of it directly about financial advising and the financial service industry, and some that is just about life and taking better care of your clients as well as yourself. In this episode, we take a listen to 4 guests who have given some great advice on the show. We'll look back on advice from Paul Epstein, former NFL and NBA executive and founder of Win Monday; Joe Jordan, inspirational speaker and behavioral finance expert; Amy Jamrog, best-selling author and CEO of the Jamrog Group; and Dave Resige, chief shepherding officer and founder of the Resige Group. This is Paul Blanco's Small Steps, Big Wins. Former NFL and NBA executive and founder of Win Monday, Paul Epstein.
The power of playing offense. Love the name. Like, give me the 2 or 3 things that you take out of that you say, if I'm listening here, it's game changer for you. Because this is, it's the end of the year. People are getting ready for the next year. How do they go on offense for 25?
For sure. Well, for one, every book has to come from either a problem that you've solved or a pain that you've struggled through and you've healed. And now you feel like you have some solutions. But it comes from a place where, in service to others, this is what I used to struggle with. And now here's a playbook on how we conquered it and how you can conquer it too. So point blank, the power of playing offense was the leadership playbook that I never had. Never. When I got promoted from being an individual contributor, so I'm a top sales guy, and then eventually they say, manage the sales team. And I said, awesome. Where's the playbook? And they gave me a blank stare and said, good luck.
Seems like it sounds like most organizations do that.
100%. That's most organizations, even to this day. Like, actually, I'll back it up with research. Here's a scary statistic for you. Managers and supervisors in Fortune 1000 companies, 60% have never received a single day of leadership training. 60%. That's scary. That's really, so we think we have, a bad boss, a bad leader, maybe, but also we have underdeveloped leaders. We have undercoached leaders. So I'm not going to put all the onus on, some of it falls on the leader, some of it falls on a system, some of it falls on, anyways, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I wanted to write the playbook that I needed. I needed it a decade plus before I wrote it. And I said, what did Paul need when he was a young buck sales manager for the LA Clippers? Because I had to go through so much trial and error. I had to go through no playbook. And look, that benefited me because you figure it out. You become resourceful. You take some calculated risk. You don't even know what game you're playing. So you're just swinging a bat, figuring that eventually I'm going to connect with the ball. Like, eventually I'm going to build a culture I'm proud of. Eventually I'm going to inspire my people. Eventually we're going to have... But it was so much trial and error. And I said, what if I can accelerate the growth of leaders? What if I can help them build more momentum? What if I can accelerate the connection and the trust and the camaraderie that they have with their teams? So that's the power of playing offense. And if I could share one thing going into 2025 on the power of playing offense, it's this. When you distill down, what do people, teams, and organizations that play offense do differently from those that play defense? The distilled down version is they are decisive. And the most important decision that they make is they take action. It is a decision to take action. It is also a decision to not take action, but are you making that decision? And the fork in the road is this. For a defensive person, they say, I succeed or I fail. For an offensive person, they say, I succeed or I learn, I succeed or I grow. And so what happens when you play offense? What happens when you're decisive? What happens when you embrace action is inevitably imperfect action. You're not always going to nail it. You're not always going to be good at it. You're not always going to figure it out. There's not always going to be a positive outcome. So if imperfect action are the table stakes to life for people that are decisive and take action, then the more that we lean into this offensive spirit, imperfect action can become an ally versus the enemy. I'll repeat that. Imperfect action is the ally versus the enemy. So I encourage everyone going into 2025. We live in a world that is so focused on success and goals and achievement and outcomes. And to use a sports metaphor, that means we only swing the bat when we think that we can effectively connect with the ball. And what I have found is that the key to life, and there's a lot of research behind this. My buddy did a study with terminal patients that said the number one word going into the tombstone is regret. And they didn't regret the things that they tried and didn't work out. They regretted the things that they wanted to do, could have done, and they never swung the bat. And so I don't want to die with regret. So for me, I focus less on, am I going to hit the ball? I just obsess with keep swinging the bat.
It's amazing. I shared, it was so aligned, Paul. I shared a video last week of, I used to call it the how-to with my dad, because my dad was very entrepreneurial, but he was never an entrepreneur. So he'd always come up with the idea and then he'd say, oh my God, then he would get stuck in the how-to, never do it. Right. Live total regret because you didn't do it. And then I saw this video recently about someone that took action and made 3 mistakes before most people even decided to do the idea. And it's exactly, and you're the way you wrote it, defense versus offense. And I think it's more people in corporate America play defense than they play offense versus entrepreneurs.
We live in a defensive world. And guess what, Paul? I'll just talk a little shop here for a second. That is why the keynote that I deliver the most, and yes, Win Monday is the halo, Win Monday is the big Trojan horse, but playing offense in defensive environments, that's what everybody wants to talk to me about. Because you could replace the word defense with change, uncertainty, disruption, hurdles, obstacles, adversity. That's just defense. So how do you play offense in those environments? And offense is always a choice.
Inspirational speaker and behavioral finance expert, Joe Jordan.
So I thought it was important to understand that when we were growing up, everybody thought the computers would take over the planet, right? That people would just dial up 1-800 buy insurance and investments. And it just hasn't happened, because there's a fundamental DNA approach towards the idea of people, feeling that they belong. And purpose is the other one, which requires a commitment that's bigger than what's in it for you. And I think that's important. And I heard a great definition of purpose, Paul. Purpose is not the thing you do. It's the thing that happens inside of others when you do what you do. And we tend to be so self-centered that we don't get that we're a communal species. And that's something that's really important, which is the idea of real purpose is when you do something for someone else. And we don't talk about that. And I think that's important. The third one is storytelling, and all wisdom comes from specific human experiences. And we've lost that too, because look, the business is not a story of numbers. It's the number of stories. And we have to begin to recapture that, to bring that in, to humanize it, because people really don't care about, the numbers and what have you. And transcendence is just that out-of-body experience you get when you do something that's really worthwhile. And we are in a position to do something really worthwhile for people and to make certain that they have independence and dignity when they retire. And if something happens to their family, that is taken care of. So that was essentially my thrust. And later on, I'll get to the point was I was focusing on advisors. Maybe because I'm slow, I didn't figure it out that that's what clients want. One of the astronauts said it best. He said, everyone has this idyllic view of what retirement's going to be. And one of the astronauts said it best. He said, if you think going to the moon is hard, try staying home. So I think we have this whole new vista that's coming up with our business in terms of what we would do. I would say one of the think tanks came out and said in 10 years, people in our business will be more centered on less the numbers and more of a life coach. People really they think it's going to be great. 6 months of golf, they're ready to put a gun in their mouth, not everybody, but a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think that's another advantage that we have.
I agree. And Joe, think about it. There's been a shift from when you opened up about how you wanted insurance people to go out and gather assets, right?
Right.
Well, today, people are gathering so many assets and they sometimes forget about their purpose on the insurance side. So your life of significance goes both ways. I think that's huge. And I do think that what you said about retirement being just a number and people not needing to know the number, they just need to know what they're going to have in retirement so that they can live that life that they want to live.
That's right. But they have to figure out what that life is first. And, there's a great
coaching
book.
comes in.
Right. It's by Gary Sirak, Sirak. He's a GA and Guardian in Ohio. And essentially the book is some people who are very well financially off if they don't have a plan in terms of what they're going to do. And again, part of that plan is the idea of doing something for others. Some of the people who are very well financially off were very, discombobulated, and if people have, this is important, if people have a profound sense of isolation or they're not doing something valuable, they've done research and found out that's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Because what begins to happen is their health declines and they die. So I really think that we are the best in position to make some of that stuff happen. So that's why I'm really stoked and excited about the business and to balance it out.
Well, I was going to go to asking about seeing advisors getting in front of clients, but before we go there, let's stay where you just were, Joe. You talked about how inspired you are, but how important it is for financial advisors to be inspired each day.
Well, I think that's crucial. And I do think that beyond just reading about the math and the stuff is to expose yourself to stories in terms of the impact that you have on people. Try to find those. I know the Life
Foundation. Yes.
Yeah. They do a lot of that stuff. I think you have to do that. I think that has to be part in terms of what you do. Because, we get so layered in terms of this left brain analytic, and that doesn't connect with people. It's the other side. So I think, we have to bring that together. That's especially important when producers feel a little down or that things aren't going their way.
And I agree, Joe. And I think our industry by and large, because it's so complicated, right? There used to be just the insurance companies and the wirehouses. Now there's RIAs, there's PNC, there's BGAs, there's FMOs. And I think the emotional side of the business has kind of got lost in the shuffle of how we're distributing products today. Yeah. And it's just a good mental check for me, even when you said that, to make sure I keep more of that. Our mission at Barnum is to impact as many lives as possible. But I probably don't say that enough and tie the stories to it. So thank you for that. That's really important. Guys, let's just pause for 1 second here and say, Joe made 3 points that are so critical right now. 1, living a life of significance and having a purpose and impacting people. Seeing people to keep you in the business and getting good at your craft. And then making it repeatable and specializing in something, if it's retirement planning or people that are at a similar company. So those are 3 things that if you're listening right now, make sure you take a time to write those down, because those sound simple, but they're game changers. All right. So Joe, if you're a young advisor today, or you're a veteran advisor, there's internal pressures and there's external forces coming at them every day. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that helps to complicate the business. There's a lot of the compliance aspect that comes into it. I think the compliance people are well-meaning, but they really don't know the business. And also there's sometimes a premise that everyone in the business is a crook. Some people feel that way, so you just have to deal with that. I think you have to put in your heart that you're doing something that's really worthwhile for people. And I don't know another profession that can protect their loved ones and give people independence and dignity. And then ultimately, because we all go, right, is the idea of, a legacy. We do that. And I don't think we talk enough about it. And so I think that's the idea of trying to bring into your mind the higher plane that you deal with. And, to some extent, I run into conflict with the industry because they all want the latest sales idea, what have you. Well, if you're not motivated or inspired, if inspired is the better word, I don't know how you would do that. Why would you subject yourself to the rejection or what have you? And that's where I think what you've done is, for people who don't know, I mean, Paul has put together an agreement with MetLife and they go out and accommodate. Now it's even better because you can do stuff virtually. I mean, before it was, driving to the factory in Connecticut somewhere or what have you. Now you can do it virtually and what the people have, and they can go from there. So that helps to solve a major problem. But I do think there's a major deficit in terms of our culture, the culture of financial services, to deal on the human storytelling approach and to then recognize and spend a lot of time seeing the impact of our work on others.
Best-selling author and CEO of the Jamrog Group, Amy Jamrog.
As I was thinking and prepping, you've done a lot of things and we'll go in a lot of different directions today. But one of the things that you've talked about is you've created this wow experience for your clientele. And I know that you had to be extremely intentional when you were building this, and I would say developing it and changing this. And tell me kind of the thought process behind that and how it got started, and then give me an update of where you are on that today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that we very deliberately do. And I think the approach that we take is the opposite of what many traditional advisors do. I think we're trained in the beginning to kind of meet the clients where they are and provide an experience catering to the things that they like to do and the hobbies that they have or the activities that they're already engaged in. And we took an opposite approach, which is, there are things we love to do, experiences we would love to share with our clients. So instead of meeting the clients where they are, we actually invite them into our world. And the beauty of that is we get to spend more time doing the things we already love to do. And then we get to fold the clients into it. So for example, I love live music. I'll spend all summer going to concerts. But we try to think about, how do we bring the VIP experience that we have with the seats that we have at the venue that we are season ticket holders and provide an experience for the clients that's unlike anything they've ever seen before. So every concert, we get to invite 12 guests. We have 20 concerts during the course of the summer. And each of the shows, we curate a different group for. So the people who are going to Dave Matthews are not the same people who are going to the Kiss concert. And those are not the same people who are going to go see Post Malone. But because the clients are so eclectic, we match them with this very eclectic group of concerts all summer. And then we curate this event that from the second they pull into the VIP parking lot, we do the whole tailgating, we escort them into the VIP tent. They just feel special. And that's the whole experience that we're trying to create. I read a book recently where the author said, every client wants the same two things. They want you to solve their problems and they want to feel special. And I think we as advisors often only focus on the first. And for us, it's really having the clients feel special, feel catered to, and feel like they're brought into our world, where they're exposed to something they may not have ever done before as well.
Well, it's amazing. And, it's very interesting. So in the role I have, I always get asked, are you a golfer? And I'm not. And I put it on hold because I kept saying, I know how obsessed I'll be with golfing. But what I've done is similar to you. I bring people into my world. And I think one of the coolest things, and I'm sure you're seeing this, is when you bring them in, is you probably get an amazing high watching their reactions to you treating them special, which probably in itself is a huge thing for you. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. And I think it's the shared joy. Right? Because I already know I love doing this. I already know it's going to be a fun night. And so I've got complete confidence in what the experience will be like. What's always a surprise is when the people come together, mostly they don't know each other. So we take advantage of any event that we plan, whether it's, virtual or in person. We take advantage of the fact that, hey, this couple over here would love this couple over here. They would have no other reason to meet each other unless we galvanize the group.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
great.
we're always really thinking about who could come to this show or who could come to this event or who'd come to this wine tasting. And we know they would hit it off. And then it's kind of like, matchmaking, but in a group setting.
Yeah, I love it.
Always, it's so funny, right? Every concert, every event, it's a little awkward for the first 10, 15 minutes. And by the end of the evening, everyone's hugging, they're exchanging numbers, they've got things in common, they find commonalities. It's so great what can happen in a short period of time in terms of relationship development. And that's the piece I love so much about it. And I think the other thing too is, we spend a lot of time being smart, being educated, being relevant, staying on top of our industry and providing that to our clients in our planning meetings. But the wow piece of it is they also get to see us as people, not just financial advisors, but they 100%. Get to be in a world exposed to new things. And I think that's the part that's very special.
I've always looked at the advisors as my clients. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, we have a very similar mindset of how we've done things with that. So it makes me feel really good. And I think it's very transferable what you're doing, which is great.
We talk about segmentation. We talk about ideal client, how we're trained in the beginning. The more successful you are, the more particular you get to be about the clients that you're taking on. And we have very specific criteria for the type of client that we're willing to take into our world now. And one of the questions that we ask, right? AUM, what do they have for net worth? What do they have for income? What is their business? How complex is the situation? Yeah, of course, like those are the obvious questions. But once we get through that, assuming the answer is yes to those things, then we look at characteristics of the ideal client. And the last question that we ask after we go through the characteristics, which include, are they coachable? Are they responsible? Are they responsive? Are they respectful of everyone on our team? Are they in a happy relationship? Because if they're not, it's not a very happy relationship for us either.
Sure.
But the last question we always ask is, would we invite them to a concert?
Yeah, it's great.
Because we want to be working with clients that we actually want to hang out with in our free time. And that's a game changer.
Yeah. And I think you have to get to a point of your career. I remember, being on the phone and not even asking them a qualifying question because you were just so happy you got the appointment, right? Right now, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I have a business that's growing so rapidly and I can be a little more specific of who I want and what I want to do with. So let's go backwards for a second. You used the thank you card before on the 2-year anniversary, which is a great one because someone might send it on the 1 year or the 10 year, but you're picking an off time to do it, which I think brings lots of value. But, my listeners here are advisors that are at the top of their game, looking to get better, but also people that are new into the industry. And when you think of someone new, what would you do? What advice would you give them to create the wow? So build on the thank you. Like, what else could they do?
I think it's so important as early as possible to focus on the client as a person and reach out to them periodically, not for business. So, we're making phone calls now to clients to say, has your daughter decided on her top choice school? Where's the big decision going to be? And just checking in personally on things, right? I wrote a book called Confetti Moments, and it's based on the fact that our work all centers around helping our clients experience more confetti moments in their lives. So anything that has to do with celebration, celebrating something big or small, we want to recognize. So we have confetti cards, and it just says, cue the confetti on the front of the card. You open it up and it says, congratulations on, and then we fill in the blank of congratulations on your son getting his driver's license. Congratulations on paying the final tuition payment. Congratulations on we're 1 year from retirement. Like the non-traditional things that are so personal to the clients, but we might overlook because it's not an age change. It's not time for a conversion. It's not time for a rollover. And so I would say, especially for younger people, newer people in the business, to take the time to acknowledge those confetti moments, to send the card, to pick up the phone, to make the phone call, because the clients will see how much you're paying attention to the things that matter to them.
And take it a step further. You have to know those dates. You have to have that information, right? So during your fact find onboarding your clients, you have to be a great listener during those timeframes to get all that information. And I love what you're doing, because some of those are traditional, like the kid got out of school and the industry is calling to sell them something. You're saying just congratulations, and those sales come. So for the listeners here, if you're very intentional about building those relationships, they're on that conveyor belt, and eventually they'll be the concert goers when you get to that point. But you have to be very intentional about getting the data on that.
Chief Shepherding Officer and founder of the Resicki Group, Dave Resicki.
So every quarter without fail, I do an offsite personally, and I coach my clients around this. Spend time with your best client. You are your best client. Take a look back. Reflect on the last 3 months, the previous 3 months, and celebrate. What are the biggest wins that you have accomplished in your life, and rejoice at all those things that you're doing exceptionally well, because that elevates your spirit, and it reminds you, regardless of where I'm at today, the high or low that I might be at today, there are things in my life that are going really well. And then after you celebrate, you rejoice, then you want to reflect, do a self-assessment, ask yourself something like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I feel like I'm doing in each of those areas of my life? And a 10 would be, I'm awesome. Life couldn't be better. And a 1 would be, I'm failing miserably. It's causing me a ton of anxiety and frustration. Where are you at? And give yourself a visual of all those different areas of your life in a picture form. And then the reblending is ask yourself, okay, thinking about the next 3 months, what are 1 or 2 things in each of those different segments of my life? What are 1 or 2 actions that I am 100% in control of? That when I do them over the next 3 months, I will know and I will feel like I'm making really significant progress in each of those segments of my life. And after you do that, I mean, you have a 1-page business plan for your next 3 months, sort of like what Brian Moran and Mike Lennington would teach in the 12-week year, right? You've got your 12-week goals, you've got your tactics, and then just go execute on the things that you said that you were in control of, that when you do them will make you feel great about all those areas of your life. So, keep it simple, but, keep shorter period check-ins.
I love
my
that.
Thoughts and beliefs about it.
I love that. If for anyone of that is listening and you're driving, go back and rewind and listen to this one again. I think that was probably one of the best answers I've ever heard on work-life balance. I love the blended. I love the 8 categories. And what I find is the best entrepreneurs, as much as they celebrate, they're also really hard on themselves. And I love the idea of stepping back and not thinking what I could do better, but thinking what I did great to start the process of that. Now, do you just go a day and you just by yourself for the whole day when you do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we just relocated the family from South Florida to Greenville. So to Greenville, South Carolina. So I've got to find my new spot. But what I used to do is I would go to the Breakers in Palm Beach for the day. I'd go by myself. I would go to a place that inspires me. So the Breakers, for those of you that have been there, it's one of the most beautiful properties in all of South Florida. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean. There's successful, great people walking around property. And I just go to a place where I'm outside the normal rhythm of my life, where I can have some quiet time in my mind and in my heart. I sit in a comfy chair. I eat food that fuels my body. And I spend 3-4 hours going through that process. And it's unbelievable. Yeah,
I love it. I think that's awesome to do that. And, it goes back to the preparation that you talked about earlier about how you prepare for stuff, and you're preparing just for life on your quarterly basis. I love it. And I think that's something awesome. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins, Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484. Telephone number 203-513-6000.